Shark sightings along the New South Wales coast are at their highest level in 5 years. Surf Lifesaving recording 53 sightings on Sydney beaches in the 12 months to July. Joining us live now is Professor Culum for the School of Natural Sciences at Macquarie University. Professor, thank you for your time. Why are shark sightings on the rise in New South Wales?
Well, I think it's the case that nearly everybody has a drone these days, and certainly Surf Lifesaving are using drones more often. There'll be a heap of people who have unpacked a drone after Christmas, and no doubt they'll be heading to the beach and other places to use them. And in fact, if you look at the Tauranga shark incident file, you'll find that the number of incidents reported there is also going up. And I think that similarly reflects the fact that there are just so many drones out there.
So it's not the case that there are more sharks in the water, it's that we have better technology to actually spot them.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, if you have a look at most of the sharks that people think about when we think about sharks, it's white sharks and tiger sharks. I think there was some news recently spotting some hammerheads off the coast. Most of those species are threatened or endangered. So it's the reason that they're listed is precisely because their populations are declining, not increasing. So I think that's certainly the case that people are just becoming increasingly aware of the fact that sharks are around all the time, particularly as we deploy drones more often. And I think one of the take-home messages from that is that we start to realise that sharks are around in our waters off the coast of Australia quite frequently. And the number of shark incidents, that is the number of people who get bitten or are killed each year, is extremely low considering how often we see sharks off the coast.
Once sharks are spotted, how do you go about following them?
Well, it depends on what sort of drone technology you have. I mean, most drones that people are using and the ones that people would have bought for Christmas, they'll just be doing that manually. But you can also actually train a drone or program it to follow sharks automatically. So there's a number of drones now that will be coming onto the market soon, things called drone in a box, which basically sits in its little box safely charging, and then you can program it to do a certain route and target certain images. And so the AI technology we have nowadays can automatically recognize different species of sharks, not just any shark, but a specific species. And it can even tell you how big it is, where it's going, and report that back to base so that people can get warned and come out of the water.
Which species are the ones we should be concerned about?
Well, personally, I don't think we should be concerned about too many species. We've just seen on your program that 50, 60 people drown every year just from swimming in the oceans and in rivers and in pools and things like that. And the number of people who are killed by sharks might be 1 or 2 a year on average. So the threat is actually very low, but certainly the ones that most people are concerned about are things like bull sharks, white sharks and tiger sharks. And oddly enough, warbigons are in the top 4 of the number of people who are bitten by sharks. And I think that's just because people step on them.
How close do they get to the shore?
Well, sharks rarely come very close to shore unless they're chasing baits, bait schools of fish and things like that. We've seen a couple of incidents over the last couple of years where people have gone swimming and there's been big schools of bait fish just offshore, and even shorebirds diving in to take those bait fish. And if you swim in that sort of condition, there's almost certainly going to be sharks there. And unfortunately, a bit like dogs, once they decide they're in feeding mode, they're in feeding mode, and they'll bite at pretty much anything that comes close to them. So certainly stay out of the water, and there are bait fish around. Sharks tend to be more active at dawn and dusk, so if you avoid those times. And also many sharks use silhouettes to identify their prey, and so if they can't use their vision very well, so after heavy rainfall, and that sort of thing, when the water's a bit murky, it's definitely better to stay out of the water and under those circumstances too.
Okay, Professor Culum, we have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time.
No problem at all.